So if you're following along in the notes, this is chapter 14.6, Solving Equations with Rational Expressions. This is on the very last page, the 2 application problems, so the 2 word problems. So the first one says the distance to your cousin's house is 312 miles and the distance to New York City is 624 miles. If it took you 6 hours to drive to your cousin's house, how long would it take you to drive to New York City? So if you remember, we talked about in the previous example and in the notes during class that you have to be consistent with these word problems. And so what I mean is I'm going to have to set up a proportion, so a fraction equal to a fraction. And on one side, I'm going to have cousin's house, and on the other side is going to be my fraction associated with New York City. And so I have a time and a distance, and they give me some stats, if you will, and I'm going to find how long would it take to drive to New York City. And so anywhere that I see cousins, I'm going to associate that with this pink highlighter. So the distance to your cousin's house is 312 miles. So that's going to go over here on my cousin's side, 312 miles. And the distance to New York City is 624 miles. So for New York City, I'll use this blue color. So the distance to New York City is 624. And so I want to keep this lined up. Here I have miles on top. So for this side, I want miles on top. And New York City is 624. If it took 6 hours to drive to your cousin's house, so this is going to go with my cousin's part. So I have 6 hours to drive to your cousin's house. So that's going to go over here on this left fraction where I have cousins. And then on the right side, the rest of that sentence says, how long would it take to drive to New York City? So how long is going to answer a question, which means I don't know that value. And so in algebra, if we don't know a value, we're going to call that x. And so I've set up the proportion. I need to solve this for x because x is going to answer the question, how long? And so I'm going to cross multiply. I like to multiply if there's only one x, the side with the x on it first. So 312 times x is going to give me 312x. I'm actually going to write this over here. And then cross multiply on the other side, 6 times 624. 6 times 624 is going to give me a product of 3744. Now from here, I'm going to solve for x, so I'm going to divide by 312, divide by 312, and then I will get out a final answer of x equals 12. So it would take me 12 hours to drive to New York City. All right, the next one, Derek is averaging 20 hits for every 40 times at bat. If he maintains this average, how many at-bats will he need in order to get 40 hits? So step 1 says to set up the proportion, and this is an exact screenshot out of Hawks, and so it'll look just like this in your homework. And then step 2 says to solve the proportion. So Derek is averaging 20 hits for every 40 times at bat. So here are my 2 scenarios. This time I'll use purple. 20 hits. So I'm going to have Derek's hits on top. And then for every 40 times at bat. And so here I'll have his at bats. Okay, so I'm going to fill in my number. Derek is averaging 20 hits. So I'll have 20 on that top fraction for every 40 times at bat. And then the next part says, if he maintains this average, how many at bats? So in algebra, we write a how many as an x will he need in order to get 40 hits? And so I have to keep this consistent. My hits are going on top, so I'll have 40 on top. And my how many at-bats, my x is going down at the bottom with the at-bats. So that would be your answer to step 1. Step 2 is going to say, take that proportion that you just set up and let's solve it. So I'm going to cross multiply. I like to cross multiply the side with the x on it first. So 20 times x is going to give me 20x equals the other side. 40 times 40 is going to give me 1,600. Divide by 20, divide by 20. Those are going to cancel and give me x equals 80 at bats. And so in the homework, you would just type in 80. The units would already be there, but that would be your final answer. Hope this has helped.